Everything is filled with the divine. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a wonder, unfolding right before our eyes. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a blessing, bursting from the earth and sky. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everyone is sacred. Everyone is filled with the divine. Everyone is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is sacred. Everything is filled with the divine. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a wonder, unfolding right before our eyes. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is a blessing, bursting from the earth and sky. Everything is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everyone is sacred. Everyone is filled with the divine. Everyone is alive with spirit, with spirit. Everything is sacred.
Thank you.
Let's take a moment for prayer. As we come together today, let's take a deep breath, one of so many we have taken over the years, but each deep breath just grounds us. We feel our feet on the ground. We feel our seats supported by our chairs. We just feel the presence of God in this place. Because we know, as the song says, we are not alone. God is with us every step of the way. We're all connected to that one. So being alone is not something that we ever are. We are always with God. So in knowing this, we know coming together in community just helps us remember that, helps us bond together as a community. And we just learn so much from one another just in conversation. And we learn always from Reverend Jenn's talks each Sunday. So today is no exception. We are here today to learn to grow in our spirituality, to show love for our neighbors, and to know that love is God's language. So we are so appreciative of our music today, for Laura stepping in, for our outgoing AV team and our incoming AV team. We are so grateful. For our ushers, for our practitioners, for our hospitality, all those that help set up and get things ready for today's service. And we are also appreciative of all those who are here today, all those who are watching us on video, all of those who are at home or hiking or out in nature, whatever they're doing, wherever they are. We are all one. We are all supported by that one God. So in this knowing today, we know that that is so. And we are very grateful and thankful for this knowing, as we say together, and so it is. We have some words of wisdom today from several different people, as usual. And our first one is words from Jacob Briss. Look at a stonecutter hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times, without as much as a crack. Yet, at the 101st time, the blow just splits it in two. And I know it was not that last blow that did it, but all that had gone before. And the next one's from Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. And from our founder, the Honorary Dr. Ernest Holmes. We may meet difficulties, uncertainties, and doubts, barriers, walling our passage, but we must not be discouraged when so confronted. We must climb over the rocks of unbelief, pass around the barriers of doubt, and plunge into the stream with faith. The stream will ever widen, the barriers will gradually disappear, though we walk through the plains and valleys of indecision and doubt. The stream will still carry us back to the ocean of our being.
So here's what we do. We build walls. We trip over the stones we've used to create the barriers that we hope will protect us. And then we wonder why we feel isolated and alone. As we go into our talk today on the standing stones, this is our talk title, what came to mind for me was a story in the Bible, in the Hebrew scripture. And it's a story of a time when Joshua led the Israelites to overthrow the city of Jericho. I'm sure many of us know this, whether you grew up with the Bible basis in your upbringing or not. But what took place was God spoke to Joshua, and he told him how they were going to bring the huge walls of Jericho down so that the Israelites could take over the city. The walls in the story represent the division, And it often gives us insight to things that we maybe need to break down or dismantle. So it's a good visual, it's a good metaphysical process there for us. In some contexts, walls represent boundaries that protect us and help us feel safe. And I think what happens for many of us, we get confused in which walls we're building and which things we're trying to do. So in this story, the Israelites were to march around the city for 6 days with 7 priests. And the 7 priests were carrying ram horns, and they were blowing them at a specific time in the march. So they were marching around the walls of Jericho, and then they would trumpet these horns, and then they would go away, and they'd come back and do it again the next day. Now, nothing else was supposed to transpire. That was the instructions. The people followed it very well. But on the 7th day, when they walked around the city, they were going to walk around the city 7 times. And every time that the priests blew on the ram's horns, the people were going to have a message at one moment in time to shout. So here's all these Israelites marching around this city with these huge walls protecting the people inside. The people inside are thinking they're perfectly safe. They've been at this for days. Nothing's happening. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, they're told to shout, and the shout comes up from the people. In that very moment, the walls came crumbling down. And the Israelites came in and took over the city. That story has a lot of messaging in it for us. One was that I was resistant to was following instructions. It's like, well, when Spirit says, here's how you do it, and you do it that way, oh my gosh, look what happens. We get the result that we're looking for. It also supports us in how to overcome obstacles and things that possibly are in our way of accomplishing what we want to accomplish. It's also a great reminder because the Israelites did this by faith. It was their faith in God, their faith in the divine that took them from that place of being outside of the city to being able to actually come in and take over the city. So as we start this work today and this messaging today, let's just think about that from time to time. In the walls of Jericho, there was a song, I tried to remember it, and I didn't try hard enough to go look it up or anything, but there was a song we used to sing as a kid about the walls came tumbling down, and I thought, gosh, that's amazing. I don't remember any of the messaging that I brought forth today in the stories that I got as a kid, but that's neither here nor there. So I have a quote here from our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, and Sharon shared this with us earlier, but now you have it in front of you in print, so you can kind of let it kind of percolate a little bit more in your being. And here's what Dr. Ernest Holmes says: "We may meet difficulties, uncertainties, and doubts, barriers that are walling our passage, but we must not be discouraged when we are so confronted. We must climb over the rocks of unbelief, pass around the barriers of doubt, and plunge into the stream of faith with faith. The stream will ever widen. The barriers will gradually disappear. Though we walk through the plains and the valleys of indecision and doubt, the stream will still carry us back to the ocean of our being." What an amazing quote this is. I just love the power of this and the way that Holmes talks to us. We can overcome anything because our God is that powerful. A stone wall in front of you can be dismantled. There is no problem or challenge in your life that is too great for God, that is too great for our God to support us in moving through it. So what we want to remember today and throughout this week is that each one of us has the power to remove the barriers if we so choose. They are impacting our lives negatively in many situations. But as we take these steps, we must continue to find greater clarity and support for living our best life. So sometimes it's as simple as a barrier of rock wall is in front of me and I can't see through it. I can't see what's ahead of me until I take it down, until I find a way to dismantle it. And it's the same way with anything that's going on in our world, our problems, our grief, our challenges, our struggles. We're stuck here and we've got this singular view and we can't see past it. So we go into prayer. We take time to listen to that divine voice that shows up and guides us. And then we move step by step through the process as we are being guided. Mahatma Gandhi said, "Each one of us has to find his peace from within. And peace, to be real, must be unaffected by outside circumstances." So our theme for this month is speaking truth to circumstances. So we're looking at circumstances, we're looking at conditions, we're looking at those things that are out there, that are in front of us, that are showing up in the world around us. And what he's saying is we have to find the peace within us. And one of the greatest times to find this, to discover this, is in the midst of absolute crazy chaos. When it feels like the world is topsy-turvy, when it feels like nothing is going the way it feels like that we thought it's supposed to go, and we're feeling disillusioned and challenged. And yet, in that moment, we can take a deep breath in, we can breathe out, and we can find that peace within. So the stones represent the conditions speaking to us of our limitations. They offer the awareness of their solidity and our frailty. They offer their power and possibly our weakness. And too often we believe this and we fail to realize that all we need to do is to go into consciousness, connect with the infinite, and find our strength. We often come face to face with our humanity and we simply back down. The wall's too big. The challenge is too great. I can't accomplish this. I'm going back to bed. I know I'm not the only person that's ever had that thought. What we find is when we are standing in the combination of our own thinking and the collective consciousness of others, we tend to be disillusioned. Sometimes we are picking up the energy of those around us, and those around us may not have the knowing we have, may not have the faith that we have, may not know the God that we know as we know it. And so we don't want to adopt other ideas and other perspectives in a situation where we know that the power and the presence of the one God can help us through it. It's so easy. It's so easy to say, I didn't really want it that bad after all. Wasn't really what I wanted to do. I didn't know it was going to be this much work. I didn't know I was going to have to dismantle a rock wall. And therefore, I'm going to resign myself to not accomplishing what I had at one moment desired to accomplish. Outer conditions do not need to impact us in negative ways. We are of the divine. We are divine beings having a human experience. We have incredible power, limitless power to do what we choose to do and what we want to do. All we need to do is align with the truth of who we are, stay in that place of knowing connection. Now, when I say knowing connection, it's that I know I'm connected with Spirit. Spirit is never gone from me. Spirit is never taking a day off. Never putting out the little sign that says, I've gone to break, I'll be back in 20 minutes. That's not what's happening with God. That's not what's happening with Spirit. It's always here, always on, always supporting. It is my mind that creates the division. It is my mind that creates the separation. And this is true for all of us. And so what we want to do is we want to remember this, we want to acknowledge this and go to that place of, it isn't about what's happening out there, it's about what's going on in here. It's about what I'm perceiving, what I'm choosing, what I'm believing in this moment. One of my favorite people, Ralph Waldo Emerson, says, "Let us take our bloated nothingness out of the path of the divine circuits." When I saw this quote this past week, I got a little offended. And what I realized in that little offendedness was that I would just jumped right into my bloated nothingness. If you find this harsh or harmful, or you're feeling like you want to object to it, you might want to take a closer look at that, because what I know that to be is that is the exact thing that we call our bloated nothingness, and we often call that wonderful thing ego. I've been talking about ego off and on this month, 'Cause mine has just been in charge of a whole lot of stuff, and so it's been really easy for me to bring this up. Holmes tells us this: meditate on the perfect life, not what you believe to be the perfect life, but what is the perfect life. And in that meditation, go into that place of knowing that Spirit is guiding me. I don't have to come up with the answers. I don't have to go fix everyone that's bothering me, I guess is the word I want to use at this moment in time. I don't need to go adjust your thinking because you're not thinking like I'm thinking, and so therefore this feels too complicated. I don't have to do that. All I have to do is go back into that space, into that knowing, and allow Spirit to guide me and take me to wherever it is I need to go and whatever I need to do. It's so easy to look outside, isn't it? I mean, that's where our eyes are facing. Wayne Dyer used to say our eyes, we were made with our eyes facing the wrong direction. Because I'm looking out here and I'm seeing this child misbehaving, and I'm seeing that person who's not being very nice to their dog, and I'm seeing this person who doesn't seem to know how to drive, and I've got all of these wonderful targets out here, and my brain and my energy and my beautiful, amazing ego is just going to town with what these guys need to be doing differently. And I'm here to tell you that's not ours to do. It's not. No one of us was born with an ego. The ego is something we learn about. So we're born in this beautiful innocence, this infant child. We don't know anything except discomfort. And when we start to discover that our cries of discomfort bring someone's attention, we start to realize what we need to do and how we need to do it to feel safer, to feel better, to feel drier, to feel fed, to feel cleaner, whatever it is we're seeking. Now, there's not a whole lot of evaluative process going on in that because I'm still talking about the infant child. But what we start to realize is that we've got this ability within us to say, hey, wait a second, you're not going to treat me that way. Hey, wait a second, this isn't right. Oh my gosh, I need to do something different. And so as soon as we start to get into that place of recognizing the ego and understanding how it works and what it's designed to do, we start trying to get away from it, kill it, put it to sleep, whatever, because we don't like it. We're not comfortable with it. And I'm here to tell you, it's not going away. I'd have figured that one out by now. It's not going away. We need to find a way to embrace it and interlock with it, if you will, so that we can move together in this process we call life. I can have an ego that tells me when I need to back up, slow down, be more cautious, and protect myself. And I can master my ego that tells me, she's wrong, he's wrong, oh my gosh, what the heck is that all about? That's the piece where I can step in and manage and master and embrace the idea. The ego actually supports us in our quest for truth because it will not still until it has found it. And with this truth comes clarity. The ego is also the judge. It is also the critic. And it will decide for us if conditions and circumstances are healthy, unhealthy, safe, or something we should avoid altogether. Now, I want to remind you that the ego isn't a bad thing. It's not good or bad. How we master it is a big part of the process, but the ego in itself, no. So, let me tell you how this shows up, because I know you need an example. I can tell by the looks on your faces that you're going, okay, here's how this works. About a year and a half ago, I was living about 2 miles from here in Aurora, Colorado, and I noticed that when I drive around Denver and Aurora and the outlying communities, I was noticing an awful lot of vehicles that had the wrong date numbers on their license plates. Their license plates had expired. And I remember even talking to one of my sons and saying, did something happen with DMV that we're not renewing our license plates anymore? Why are all these people driving around? And my sons were like, oh my gosh, Mom, people just aren't paying attention. I don't know, whatever. But I kept paying attention to it, and I kept noticing it. And as you know, a little over a month ago, I moved to Monument, Colorado. One of the first conversations I had with my oldest son was, oh my gosh, he let the plates on his classic truck expire. Now, from what I understand, a classic vehicle only has to be renewed every 5 years. He was 2 years late. And again, how does that happen? I don't know. I'm sitting here listening to him thinking, oh my gosh, how could you do that? What is going on with you? Well, he was upset because now he had to go to DMV. He had to prove that he doesn't put too many miles on it because it's a classic, yada, yada, whatever. And he got it all done. And when he left the house, he said, I'm going to probably be at the DMV for most of the day. And I said, no, with that attitude, maybe. I said, but how about if you just know that you're going to walk in there and turn around and walk out and it's going to get done? Well, he walked in, got the ticket number, went to sit down, and they called his number. He walked over to the window, and 10 minutes later, he was out. He got a $25 fine. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And then I kept thinking, why did that story come up when I've had this kind of thought about people letting their license plates expire? And then I walked into the garage.
Laura's I found you disconnected.
And then I walked into the garage, and I'm looking at my license plates, and I'm thinking, why does that number say 22? So I knew that my plates usually expire in June, and I usually blow it off till July, whatever. So anyhow, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to have to get this handled. So I go online, and the online thing wasn't going to work with me at all because I had to change address, and it had too many variables. So I found out there's a little kiosk in Monument at the King Soopers. So I go in there, and I pull out my registration, and I'm looking, and I'm thinking, well, that has a 22 on it too. How weird is that? Slide it in the machine, it scans it, comes back and says, you haven't renewed your plates for over a year. And I'm thinking, well, you're crazy. And my brain went, because I can rationalize anything, I think many of you know this, my brain went to, well, I was in Aurora, now I'm in El Paso County. It just doesn't know. It just doesn't have the right information. So now I decide that this past Friday, I'm going down to DMV in Colorado Springs. I'm going to get this handled. The more I'm thinking about it, the more I'm beginning to realize that something seems to be off. I get in the car, I pull out all of the old registrations, all of the insurance stuff, everything, and I'm looking at this, and every single thing I have says 2022. So I go in and I tell the young lady that I'm going to renew my plates, and I said, and funny thing, all this stuff has the wrong dates on it. And she says to me, well, looking at the records, you did not renew last year. So therefore, she goes, but don't you worry, I'm going to catch you up. It's going to be just fine. We're going to get last year's taken care of, we're going to get this next year's taken care of, and unfortunately for you, there's a $100 fine. And I said, oh my gosh, my son only had to pay a $25 fine. And she goes, on what kind of a vehicle? And I said, never mind, it's probably not relevant, just let's get it done. Now, I don't know if you have this kind of realization in your life, but I do. All those times I was noticing out there the vehicles that were not in compliance with the law, I never once thought to look at my plates because I renew them every year. They send me a card, I renew them every year. Well, clearly last year I didn't get the card, didn't think about it, didn't renew. Here you go. So what was that was alive in me as I was out there projecting to everybody else in the state of Colorado? That was ego. That was my ego going, what is wrong with these people? How come they can't do this? And then it all just showed up, and some of you will call this karma, and then it all just showed up for me. I don't call it karma, I call it, Jen wasn't paying attention. Don't do that again. It's expensive to do this every other year. Trust me, don't go that route. So what happens to us is we get into that mindset that we've got our act together. We're not out there bragging about it, but we just kind of got a sense that we know what we're doing. And we're looking around, and we're finding fault with this person and this thing and that thing. And the truth is that all of those beautiful circumstances have a truth for us. And for me it was, hey, lady, when did you renew your plates last? And there's other things, that happens in other areas, but that's a big one. And I thought, oh my gosh, I was living in that bloated nothingness. I was pointing a finger at everyone else on the planet, And I was the one who had expired my plates. And thank goodness that the Spirit that I know, that we know as the divine, is so persistent with me that it sent my son to my house to talk about his plate issue so that I would finally kind of get a clue and maybe go, oh, I should probably look at mine. Yeah. So keep that in mind, because 9 times out of 10 in my world, maybe not for you, but in my world, when I'm becoming outraged, when I'm becoming upset, when I'm becoming disgusted or upset about something that's going on out there, it is a direct and exact reflection of something I need to look at. Let's take it there this week. What is that person doing that is alive in me? And what do I need to do about that? That's the place we want to go this week. Sharon also shared this quote from Rumi. Your task is not to seek for love, but merely to seek and find all the barriers within yourself that you have built against it. We are putting up walls constantly. We are trying to protect ourselves. We don't want to have a relationship or get a new job because the last one was so painful. And we can't quite figure out how to get past that. And it requires some healing, and it requires some removing the barriers of the way, and it requires some looking at what did I bring to the last situation that caused it not to go the way I wanted it to, that I don't need to bring to the next one, or that I need to adjust or fix. The question I have for you is, how have you resisted what's going on in your world? What is it that you're not willing to do or not let go of? What are you clutching to so tightly that you're missing this beautiful, wonderful opportunity to expand and to grow? How does it work for you to be so persistent to have your own way? And sometimes it's not just having my own way, sometimes it's just having my opinion. I just want to have an opinion. I just want you to hear my opinion. You don't even have to act on it. Let me just tell you what I think about that. No. I don't even need to go into that. Unless you have requested my input, I don't need to go into that. I call that unsolicited feedback and unsolicited advice. If no one's asked you for it, perhaps we don't need to open our mouths and talk about it. What I know about issues and challenges is when they arise, we are often, well, at least I am, looking for confirmation that I have been wronged. Something happened, someone did something, I am hurt, I'm upset, this has cost me money or time or energy or whatever, and that individual needs to fess up, apologize for, at least for Pete's sake, and you're not always going to get those answers. So again, it's like we were talking last week about maybe what we just need to do is go pick up the dog poop. Instead of grumbling about it, grumbling about what's going on in the world and how things aren't being taken care of, perhaps it's mine to go and take care of it, or at least contribute to it. So here's the thing that I want to share with us. Let's take time this week. Let's go into the quiet. And in that quiet space, let's look at and be open to solutions. I don't have to write you a 4-page letter to tell you how I feel. Oftentimes, my purpose in that is to show you that you've hurt me. If that's your purpose, put the paper in the drawer. It will not get you where you want to go. I've worked with people over the years who come to me and they want me to pray for their spouse or partner and fix them. We call that manipulation, and it is not alive and well in our philosophy. We don't pray to fix or change another person. We pray for the individual seated in front of us. We pray for ourselves to shift our thinking, to change our awareness and the way we look at things. We can go into this quiet. We can look at what these stumbling blocks maybe represent, what these stones represent to us. What is this about? What does it mean to me? And what do I get to do about it? And how can it make me feel better about me or more advanced or less annoyed than I was before. What if we just turn to prayer? What if we just turn to prayer and let Spirit guide us through it? Maya Angelou allows us this quote: "Love recognizes no barriers. It jumps hurdles, leaps fences, penetrates walls to arrive at its destination full of hope." I love this. So what she's saying is, we don't even have to worry about it. If love is on its way, it's going to get here if we're open to it, as we're open to it. Absolutely. So there's a botanical garden in Montreal, and it holds the largest collection of bonsai trees in the world outside of Asia. Offered here is a place of renewal that was originally constructed in the 1600s in China and then moved stone by stone to Montreal in 1990. Mark Nepo, who is an author we know very well, wrote in his book, The Book of Awakening, he tells of a story where he and a friend went to the garden in Montreal. And they came to visit these incredible gardens. Now, they had driven over 400 miles from outside of the country just to see this beauty. And the two men strolled up towards the Chinese temple garden. It was lush, a simple retreat area. It was beautiful. It covered acres and acres of land. But as they approached, they came to a very large and massive entry gate that had a lock on it. Mark was immediately upset. They've driven all this way, and they can't get in? Are you kidding me? What is going on? What are we going to do? And however, as he is building up, we've done this, right? Building this energy, this wonderful energy about, oh my gosh, what are we going to do now? And I'm going to have to complain a little bit. I'm going to have to talk about this. While he's doing this and feeling somewhat panicked, he notices that his friend Robert just starts to take a stroll along the stone wall. Well, he follows him. He's not sure why, and he's thinking, what is he going to do? Is he going to walk around the whole outside wall of this thing? This thing is acres in size. We're not going to, this is crazy. And so he's got this whole mind chatter going on. We've been there, right? Don't see all the beauty around us because we've got all this chatting going on. And Robert is just walking along, calm, approaching the situation, curiously looking at the scenery and the stone wall. And he acted as though the entire situation was just a riddle to be solved. And Mark was beside himself. What the heck is going on? So as they walked the outer wall of the garden, it seemed insurmountable. There was no way they could climb over it. What were they going to do? They kept walking along slowly, and since it stretched for acres, he began to wonder how far they were going to go. That thought made him downright cranky. They'd driven all this way, and now they're going to walk acres to get into this place. But suddenly, as they came around a turn, they came to a place that they could not see from their previous viewpoint. And what it was that the big, huge stone gate went around for a while, and then it just kind of stopped. And the garden was open. There was no more wall. There was no need for an entry gate or anything. The walls just disappeared. And they simply walked through the open grass to a path that welcomed them. How often do we buy into the original view of a situation? How often do we have that moment in time where something transpires, we judge it, we make a decision about it, and now we're in reaction to it, and we haven't taken the time to see if there's something else to the equation? If the circumstance that I thought I saw and evaluated isn't really the truth of what is going on here? How often have we taken the time to explore deeper and to find out if there's another answer? How many thresholds that seem to be blocked or barred or locked only seem that way from the initial viewing? Have you ever tried to unlock a door and you swore you couldn't get the key to work and the door was locked and you couldn't get it open, and someone else comes along and turns the knob and you're just like, I did that. When we get into that mindset of negativity, of limitation, of it isn't going to work, I can't make it happen, oh my gosh, I'm failing, when we step into that, we are really stuck, really stuck. And so what we want to do in that situation is we want to take the time, breathe, take more time to focus, look at it from different perspectives, and see what is going on. Sometimes the only thing we need to do is remove ourself and our mind from their traditional points of entry and see what the truth is. Dr. Michael Beckwith gives us this quote: "A bad day for the ego is a good day for the soul. My soul wants to be cheerful, dance, sing, rejoice. My soul wants to feel that limitless capability that is within me at all times. However, if I don't listen to it and I turn to that amazing, wonderful quality talent I have called ego, I'm losing the game, if you want to call it that I want to succeed in." We have the opportunity to tune into that which is greater than we are. We have the opportunity to tune in to that which is greater than we are. Every minute of every day, it is here present. It's not to get this infinite presence to do things my way. It is to change my thinking and get rid of my resistance to know that I can do it God's way. I can do it in the way of the divine. I can do it in the way that's working best for me. Because a lot of times I have an idea that's best for me, and I find out it's not. So being able to take that moment and take that time to go into that space and listen. So let us take time this week to be still, to allow this transformation to move forward. Let's ask the questions. Let's listen to the answers. Let's take deep breaths when the ego wants to just go off on a rampage. And let's take some space and some time to allow ourselves to look at the standing stones. What do they mean? Which ones do I need to remove? And how can I move forward? And this way, we can learn to see the truth in all of the circumstances, and we can always go within first. Please pray with me. There is a power. There is a power that is greater than any one of us. It is a power that we call God, the one God. And it is within each of us, and it is here for each of us, and it is ours to use as we choose. And it is beyond, bigger, brighter, greater than anything we have ever imagined. And we have the right, we have the ability, and we have the essence of the divine within us to do this very thing, to tap into this source and allow it to guide us through this life of challenge, chaos, and disgruntledness. So as we look at this week, as we know this week, we know that God is present. This power is with us every minute of every day. And how beautiful it is to be one with the divine. How beautiful it is to know that we are connected, we are united, we are unified in spirit. And so what I know for each and every one of us this week, those of us who are in the room, those of us who see this video online, what is available for each of us is to adjust our thinking, is to master that incredible, beautiful ego, knowing that it's designed to keep us safe, and yet it does not need to hamper us in our interactions and our communications and in the things that we do in the world. How beautiful it is to be so blessed. How beautiful it is to be the recipient of all this wonderful grace and truth that Spirit gives us. I know right here and right now that as we go into this week and as we turn our attention to this very idea that we are blessed by God, that perfect, beautiful being is here now and will be with us tomorrow and the next day. I embrace this. I give thanks for this. And I know it's all good, it's all God, and it's already done in the mind of God. And so right here and right now, there is nothing more for us to do but let it go and let it be as we say together, and so it is.
Stones would play inside her head, and where she slept, they made her bed, and she would ache for love and get but stones. La 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 la, Lord child, a good day's coming, and I'll be there to let the sun in, and being lost is worth a coming home. La 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 on stones. You and me, a time for planting. You and me, a harvest granting thee every prayer ever prayed, for just two wildflowers that grow. La 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 on stones.
Hello. I'm Reverend Jenn Wilde, Senior Minister for New Dawn Center for Spiritual Living. New Dawn Center is a global community, and we welcome all people, all paths, all ways of thinking, all philosophies. So know that you are welcome here, and thank you for joining our online community.